So yeah, I'd like to let Cellin speak for himself, like I guess he has been. But if you have any comments on the film, what brought you to this project, and your thoughts in seeing, I'm sure you've seen reunions like this.
Well, I mean, I'm just glad, I'm just an interloper here, I mean, I just tell that I'm just a storyteller. I was fortunate enough to be given the task of making the film and telling the story, and that's my contribution. I mean, in many ways, I did not experience what either of you, any of you guys did as far as the story, the legacy. But my father was Jewish American from New York, and so I'm half Japanese, half Jewish, so to speak. If you can't really consider Jewish a race, but I'm a double Jap. Okay, so that makes me singularly qualified to talk about this. But in any event, like I said, I'm just happy to be here to be able to tell the story, and I'm happy to be like a vehicle that is able to have these reunions, so to speak. I mean, reunions not necessarily with the people so much, but perhaps the reunions with the people and the story. I mean, it's been the most touching part of this journey has been everywhere that I've had the privilege of going and speaking with the film. I've met people. I met Nathan Lewin in Washington, D.C. His parents were number 16 and number 17 on the list. Oh. Now, Nathan Lewin, he is an outstanding lawyer. I mean, and there were many things that took place, including, I think it was either John Lennon's extradition or something. They were trying to throw John Lennon out of the country, and Lewin represented him and stopped him from getting tossed out. Okay, so without Lewin, maybe John would be still alive. No, that's not what we're supposed to look at. Without Lewin, I mean, John Lennon could have been, deported. I mean, there's just everyone has all these contributions. I mean, I was fortunate to be contacted by. The Solomon family, and the Solomon family, they're the ones responsible in Chicago. They have a museum in Chicago. I think it's the second largest Holocaust memorial museum in the U.S. after the U.S. Holocaust Museum. Oh. And he called me up out of the blue and said, "Look, my grandfather was a survivor. What can I do to help?" In that sense, I've been privileged. I've had the honor of being, helped along by that with the film, but. Like I said, I'm just a storyteller here. I'm happy to be here, to be able to put the story together and to be able to get people to keep Chiune Sugihara's memory alive, and the story alive, the history alive. I mean, we're no longer in an era or a period of oral histories, but it's sort of a contributing tradition in a visual history. And on top of that, we had a great time making the film. So it's a win-win situation for me.
Great. I don't know, Wes, if you need briefly. Yeah.
You want me to do it?
Oh,
kidding.
Well, yeah, we should have you speak in both English and Japanese.
Aren't you the translator? いや、基本的に素早く言いますけど、皆さん理解していただいたと思いますし、何回も。僕はただの要するに解説者ではないんですけども、皆さんと同じように僕は別にね、杉原さんの歴史と杉原さんのお話を僕は子供の頃から一緒に育ったっていうものじゃなくて、でもそのファミリーっていうかそのグループに参加させていただいてものすごく光栄だと思っております。サバイバーの方々とご家族の方々とで僕が何かできるっていうことがあれば。その歴史とその思い出っていうかそのメモリーをこのまま続けていけるように語り続けるようなことができて別に最近はもう歴史というものは口で語るものじゃなくていろんなビジュアルとかいろんなメディアとかそういう映画というものに関してで残していくようになりましたが、私たちが作っている映画がそのために役に立てば面白いなと思います。Made it up, but
So, where did you first hear about the Sugihara story, and how did you first get involved? How are you pulled into this project?
It's funny because I recently met a friend of mine whose father, actually her father and my father were best friends in Japan in the late 40s and early 50s. His name is Bob Booth, and he was actually a Japanese film star. He was in a bunch of movies by Daiei Toho and things like that. I remember him telling my father about this story. Now that I've been reminded of it by her, probably in the 70s. But it really didn't strike home until, Schindler's List came out. And everyone became known as the Schindler of somewhere. Mm-hmm. There's the American consul was the Schindler of Marseille. There's the Japanese Chiune Sugihara was the Schindler of Japan. The Chinese consul, I think he was in Vienna, it was known as the Schindler of Shanghai. Everyone became a Schindler. The one thing I'd like to go on record is I don't have a problem with that because Schindler has become like Kleenex in the sense that it's not a tissue, but it's a guy who saved Jews, and that's fine. But let's not forget that Schindler did what he did in 1944. Okay, Sugihara, the American consul in Marseille, the Chinese consul in Vienna, they predated him by a good 5 years. Most of these guys did what they did in 39 and 40. Mm-hmm. So Schindler should be called the Sugihara of Germany. But, there was another Jewish gentleman with probably a bigger track record than me who made a much bigger movie, and his came first. So, we're stuck with that.
Yeah. What about the difference between what Schindler did and what Sugihara?
I'm not going to get into that. The thing is, some people say that Schindler was self-serving, but you know what? It doesn't matter what his motivation was. He saved over 1,200 lives. Mm-hmm. That's what counts. And Sugihara was definitely not self-serving. He issued visas and saved people he didn't even know. But as he said himself, he said, I may have disobeyed my country, but had I not done what I did, I would have been disobeying God. A greater power, whatever that is. It's like, the difference is forget about Schindler. Sugihara did what he did because he believed it was the right thing to do. And to me, that is the most important element of this story.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Do you want to translate that, or is that okay? I don't know.
We can do it together.
Go ahead.
You're basically doing it for this too.
So,
基本的にシンドラーっていうか杉原さんの名前をいつになって聞いたって言われたんですけれども、はっきり言ったらお話は1980年ぐらいに1回聞いたことあったんですけれども、そんなに覚えてたっていうわけではなくて、もちろんその後に実は I forgot to say it in English, but I got a book called The Fugu Plan by Rabbi Tokayer.
Oh, yes.
He's now in New York. He wrote a book called The Fugu Plan, which is another story we won't get into because that's an amazing story. Run out and buy the book. That's when I heard the story and put the two together. Oh, so this is the Schindler of Japan. Now I have a face and a name.
僕だけじゃないと思いますけれども、みんなが最初に杉原さんのお話を聞いたのがいつだって聞かれても、多分ほとんどの人たちが日本のシンドラーだって言われてるのが最初だと思うんですよね、きっかけというか。まずそのきっかけ、残念なのは、シンドラーは1200数百人の人生を助けてる。で、ある人はそれは自分の有利のためにっていうか、自分の向上のためにそういう人たちを救ったって言われてるけども、それは僕関係ないと思うんですよね。千数百人の命を救ったっていうことが大切で。で、その後に、やっぱりスピルバーグという大監督が作った映画なので、しょうがないですよね。その後、クリネックスじゃないんですけれども、同じように、シンドラーっていうことは、ユダヤ人を助けたっていう人の名前、トレードマークみたいになっちゃって、マルセイユのシンドラー、中国のシンドラー、スウェーデンのシンドラー、日本のシンドラーっていう名前が出てきてもしょうがないと思うんですけれども、で、忘れちゃいけないことは、シンドラーがやったことは1944年ぐらいなんですね。43年から45年にかけて。でも、杉原さんがやったのは、40年です。39年間かけて、そのいろいろな人たちが行った行動は、少なくても4、5年は早くやってるんですよね。それも自分には全く関係ない、自分が見知らぬ人たちを救ったっていうことは、僕はそれが大切だと思うんです。で、やっぱりこの物語の大切さっていうのは、ね、政府に背を向いたとかそういうこともありますけれども、最終的には自分が正しい思ったことをやり遂げたっていうことが、僕はその一番大切な一つです。I miss anything? Got it. Good.
Maybe the part about I might have disobeyed my country.
I don't know how to say that in Japanese.
僕は日本語では絶対読んだことないんですけれども、英語で何回か読んだのは、国の規則っていうか、国に言われたことを破った、背いたかもしれないけれども、私はこのビザを発行しなければ、していなければ、神に、背くことになったっていうことをおっしゃったぐらいですから、やっぱりそれは、その神が誰の神っていうのは僕にとっては関係ないんですけれども、やっぱり自分が正しいって思ったことをやり遂げたっていうのが大切だ。
And I don't know if you answered the second part of that question. Was
Which one?
How did you get involved with this project?
I got a phone call and said, "Are you available?" And I said, "Yes." What am I doing? I actually worked on a film with Mr. Karasawa, who plays Sugihara, about 5 years ago on a film called Oba the Last Samurai, which in Japan was the original title of a little American novella that was published in the 60s. And the Japanese is Taiheiyo no Kiseki, Fox to yobaratta otoko. It's a really silly title. The Miracle in the Pacific, the man who was known as the Fox. In Singapore, it's out as the man they call the Fox. But anyway, it's about the story of a Japanese captain in the Japanese Marines who was in Saipan. When the Americans invaded Saipan, thousands died, tens of thousands died. And I adapted the novel into an English script, which was then rewritten in Japanese, which Nippon Television Films, the same producers, the same studio as this film made. And I got to be friends with Karasawa-san on that film. And we got to be friends, and we've been trying to find something to do together. And word came out that Nippon Television was going to do the Sugihara story. And they talked to me about it, and they talked to Karasawa-san about it, and they said, well, Karasawa, we'd like you to play Sugihara. And he backed me up by saying, well, if it's not going to be in Japanese, there's only one guy I'd like to direct it, and that'd be Cellin. And so I'm fortuitous, synchronicitous, and whatever it is. I was the director.
And it was shot all in Poland.
It was I would say, everything, if you see the film, when you see the film, there are probably less than 60 seconds of the film that was shot in the backlot of Toho. Everything else was shot in Poland. Everything was shot in Poland.
Okay, great.
Why did we go to Poland? You want to go down?
Do you want to answer?
Well, I mean, the story takes place so that people don't get confused, because we all talk about Poland, but the story takes place in Lithuania. It takes place in Kaunas. The history of Lithuania and Poland, that's something else we won't get into by the book, because it was Polish, it was German, it was Russian, it was Lithuanian. It's one of those territories.
Right.
It's sort of like Northern England. We were going to make the film in Lithuania. We wanted to make the film in Lithuania. We went to Lithuania. Lithuania, at the time, the infrastructure wasn't there. Lithuania had a 20% tax rebate, but everything was 20% more expensive. We said, why is that? And they said, well, because we don't have, we bring from Poland. But shooting this film in Poland was probably the smartest thing we did. Because probably, I wouldn't be exaggerating if I said 80%, over 90% of the lives he saved were Polish Jews.
Oh.
Because when the Blitzkrieg went down and the Germans invaded Poland, they did not invade Lithuania. They moved into Poland, and most of the Poles went north. There were direct trains. Just get on a train, go. And they ended up in Lithuania. So the Mir Yeshiva, right? They were mostly Polish, or completely Polish. There are several yeshivas, which are, forgive me if I butcher it, but in essence, they're schools of Judaism that people go to, learned men become rabbis. And several of them had moved to Kaunas. There's the YIVO in New York, YIVO, which is the Yiddish Institute in New York. If you look at their seal, it says 18 something or 17 something to 1940 Kovno, which is Kaunas, 1940 to present day New York. I mean, that was another school that was saved. Many of those, I won't say wholesale like the Mir Yeshiva, but many of them got out because of Sugihara. And to wrap it up, I had the best Japanese actors I could ask for. I shoot in Poland. I I get the best Polish actors I could ask for, which I wouldn't have happened if we shot in Lithuania or the U.S. or anywhere else, Romania.